Hello, everyone, and thank you for the great introduction, Brad. Was everybody here or earlier, did you get a chance to see LRE's presentation? So raise a hand, okay. So you saw how Adapt to Green and some of the Ethereum capabilities have already been implemented with a very specific use case with LRE. So what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna walk you through some various concepts of obviously what we're looking at, which would be the energy future as far as a green energy transformation is concerned. We're gonna look at innovation, sustainability, obviously, and what the whole energy spectrum really looks like and how we use the Adapt to tools to manage those expectations and how we actually move through this transition overall. So keep in mind, these are gonna be high-level concepts, but at every point I'm gonna tell you exactly how Adapt to addresses every single one of those points of either innovation or how these things can be implemented inside of the product. All right, so first things first, we have to take a look at the actual landscape. First of all, it's basically how the world in and of itself is moving toward a clean, sustainable energy. And what that means is as a world, when you look at whether it's the US, different nations, everybody has a way to move into this sustainable energy capability or world. Think about the concept of how much was actually used or was actually spent last year. It was actually $2 trillion went into these initiatives to create that sustainability of clean energy in the future. The other thing we're gonna take a look at is AI, digitalization, innovation, and how these are actually transforming markets. What's really interesting here is that we do use AI within the Adapt to product to some capabilities, and we also use digitalization, which is our forward look into our technical debt and how much we want to spend into the product as far as technology is concerned. And then, of course, the innovation behind that, right? What our customers are actually doing as far as ideas and concepts to promote their energy sustainability goals as well. And then, of course, the last thing on here is going to be new opportunities and smarter solutions. And what that actually means is that our customers are creating opportunities by simply utilizing our product in various different ways that allow them to be more marketable as well as more competitive in the markets that they're in. So let's take a look at what this actually means. First of all, green energy transformation is completely inevitable, right? A lot of the things that drive the innovation, the digitalization, and the concept of green energy or a better future in the green aspect is climate imperatives, right? There are global commitments to have net zero sustainability or net zero emissions by a certain goal. The perfect example of this is the city of Orlando. They are implementing what they call community solar farms that allow them to basically provide energy for all of their different buildings. And their goals, their net zero goals, are by, I think, 2032, they are expecting to be at net zero. And what that means also is that as they are creating this community solar farms, they're also providing energy to every single one of their municipal buildings. And the buildings that don't have access to that community farm, they will then slap an actual solar farm on top of that building in order for them to get to that commitment of zero emissions. And so the commitment comes really from the governance as well as the world as a whole wanting to get to that point. The other thing that we're also looking at is economic shifts, right? There's a world of opportunity in the renewable energy space where it's becoming a lot more effective and also a lot more efficient. When it comes to fossil fuels, it doesn't mean we abandon them. What we do is we incorporate them into the product mix of what those economic shifts would actually do for us. And then the other thing would be the consumer and corporate demand and sustainability around that, right? A lot of times, newer companies, what they're doing is they're prioritizing their investment in their renewable resources. They're actually committing more and prioritizing into what their business should look like over a certain period of time with that commitment in mind. So what does that mean when you start looking at the innovation behind all of this? AI, obviously, we've talked at length within this conference already about AI, predictive analytics, and how this is actually strategizing around the different trading capabilities that you could potentially have. So this is where it's a very specific implementation of Adapt2, for example. When you look at the Adapt2 Green product, it offers you capabilities not only to manage PPAs, it gives you the capabilities to also manage trade capture, but most importantly, from a renewable perspective, it also allows you to manage all of your rec inventory inside of the product. So when it comes to predictive analytics and when it comes to AI and being able to optimize your trading strategies, you can feed that information into the product as well as other areas of the system that basically allow you to create those strategies. The other thing that's very important, and this is where Adapt2 also has great capabilities, is smarter contracts. And this sounds very nebulous or very kind of obscure concept, but a smart contract is really what you could consider like a PPA or even a trade contract, a rec trade contract, or even a regular bilateral trade. What the system allows you to do is to optimize on how those trades go into the system and how you're actually contracting with the individual counterparties or the individual off-takers, depending on the type of contract you're putting into the system. The other thing that we also do is that we automate real-time data into the system. And how is this transformative when it comes to market efficiency? Is that our systems allow you to basically take ISO data, take registry data, as well as bilateral data, meaning counterparty to counterparty, and automate that inside of the system as well. So these are capabilities where our customers are using innovation to and maximize the capacity and utility of the actual product. And then if you look at the additional concepts that come with that, as far as sustainability, one of the things that we always look at is going to be grid modernization. And of course, we heard the talk earlier where when you're actually optimizing and basically creating a better future for our grids, you're obviously going to have better reliability, where you have generation being delivered to a load where the balancing of that grid makes sense. Well, in our world, when it comes to the Adapt2 product, we have capabilities to bring down data from these optimization engines so that you can also create what you would call market forecasts inside of the system, as well as make strategic decisions as to what the grid is actually doing. The other thing is that we are cloud-based in the ETRM space, which means that if you were in the LRE presentation earlier, you could have seen a real live action of what that really looks like. And what this basically says is our system is actually containerized, which means that all of everything that we do as far as services is actually on the cloud, and we basically integrate to that so that we can put in all of our trades, contracts, and all of those capabilities, as well as our recs as well. But what's interesting also is the AI forecasting. Earlier, one of our presenters also talked about how you can input forecasting into Adapt2 so that you can both reduce volatility in obviously in energy trading, but also so that you can maximize on what your trading strategy ought to be over time. So then moving into the actual renewable space, carbon credits, RECs, and all of these things are what basically our customers are doing as far as how they are shaping how they want to trade in these markets. So if you think about all of the different registries, from Emirates to PJM to GIS to Regis to ERCOT, NIGATS, and NAR, all of these registries have been efficiently integrated into Adapt2 in real time, which means that our customers are able to manage their inventory within those registries in real time, and they can initiate transfers as well as retirements, as well as look at their trading objectives to make sure that they're buying and selling the rec inventory that they actually need. What that also means is if you look at that second one, which is the virtual power plants, this is a capability that you can see in real time in the registries. Because you'll see, for example, my last name is Gonzalez, you can see my solar panels within the registry that has already been aggregated into a virtual power plant that is now being put into the grid by a generator. for example. In my case, would be like NRG. So you can see the aggregation of each one of the individual panel solar capacities being put into the system as well. And then the other thing that we want to talk about in this particular case and how our customers are utilizing Adapt 2 is the energy storage. I know that in a lot of ways, everybody thinks that, well, we can't maximize the utility of a battery, for example, but you can maximize the actual utility of a battery against a particular project, right? And along with your transmission as well, there is maximization around that as well. Within Adapt 2, you can optimize how that battery is stood up and it's also brought back down, and what the actual storage rates actually, or discharge rates that go into that battery. And to be honest with you, those are all part of what could potentially be a project, a renewable project, for example, that actually has solar or wind and storage capacity as well. And then, of course, to wrap it all up, when you look at the power purchase agreements, which is really a smart way for you to lock into a future at a certain price mechanism so that you can basically hedge what that energy would look like over time. What that means is that you would have a project, a renewable project, that has then contracted with off-takers over a certain percentage of that generation over the future of that particular generation project. So these PPAs could potentially be anywhere from 10 to 15, 20, 30 years. It's not uncommon for you to be able to manage these type of these type of trades inside of Adapt 2. In fact, LRE was one of those examples that actually did it today. The other thing that we look at is basically overcoming challenges, right? And again, a great example is going to be market volatility and navigating those prices around the renewables. When you contract within a particular PPA, for example, you can hedge forward into 30, 20 years at a very specific price mechanism, right? Inside of Adapt 2, you can set those curves both for the actual PPA, as well as the settlement that's going to come around that PPA as well. And of course, the other thing that we also look at, and again, mechanisms to optimize your trading capabilities within the system, is also investing in transmission. This is looking at it from a generator perspective as well as a grid perspective, right? When you think of an actual project that's going to go online, oftentimes one of the feasibility studies that a project needs to do is how far am I from the grid to or the node to which I'm going to connect in the grid, right? That transmission line needs to be built. Decisions need to be made around not only the feasibility of the transmission, but also do we need to include storage in that to facilitate how we actually move the energy directly into the grid. And then, of course, the last thing, or the fourth one here, is going to be compliance, regulatory, everything that has to do with governance as far as RPS, non-RPS, and carbon-free compliance requirements or programs across either the federal government or state mandates like in California. And the last thing in this particular presentation, or this particular slide, is going to be the balancing your actual renewable mix against your traditional fuels. I don't often like to use the word fossil fuels because there are other fuels that we could potentially use where you can maximize your product mix across what's being utilized for a particular consumer or a particular load. Right? Oftentimes, you can take a very specific power purchase agreement with a combination of renewable energy certificates as well as traditional fuels to give you the product mix to be successful in the markets. So how is AI coming into all of this? Well, one is that you can create, now we haven't gotten this far yet, but you can create autonomous trading systems where you could potentially be putting in trades into the market based on AI capabilities or machine learning that's been already supplied into the system as well. The other interesting thing, and this is something you can do in Adapt 2 Green, is the decentralized energy models. And what that means is that you can create partnerships where you're going peer-to-peer and you're buying and selling, right? There are independent power producers out there, independent consumers that can buy markets in the bilateral markets without necessarily affecting the reliability of the actual grid. And I think that this was actually mentioned earlier in the NERC talk as well. And then, of course, optimizing your carbon footprint, right? The idea here is to feed the models. And one of the things that Adaptive does as well is that it comes with a plethora of capabilities around a data lake and Azure capabilities, as well as machine learning, and also our AI-driven capabilities, where you can feed in the models, and it'll give you the optimization as to how to reduce your carbon footprint. Now, there are areas where we potentially need to work on, and that's where some of the other capabilities with Plexos comes in, where you have insights and analytics that could potentially be added to the product as well. So from a business perspective or an investment perspective or opportunities, corporates around the world, everywhere, everybody's committing to driving a sustainable commitment, right? Everybody wants to succeed, everybody wants to grow. But in order to do that, you have to have these sustainability goals or commitments, and where you can get to a net zero or close to net zero based on your product mix or fuel mix. The other thing that you can also do within the product, and this is one of my favorite actually, is new revenue models. It's basically monetizing on energy efficiency and those carbon credits or reducing your carbon footprint. Because you can manage all of your inventory inside of Adaptive as far as emission certificates as well as renewable certificates inside of Adaptive, you can basically decide how that is going to be traded in the markets, because every single one of those items that you can manage inside of the system is directly connected to the registries. And by it being connected to the registries, you can also automate how that's connected to a contract, which means that as we interact with the individual registries in real time, the automation part of the system is optimizing as to which contract or trades every single one of those quantities belongs to. And of course, I mentioned this one earlier. One of the things our companies are trying to balance out is what is the right fuel or product mix when it comes to renewables, natural gas, storage, or any other type of fuel that they really want to manage as part of their product mix. So closing thoughts. The energy transformation is not just about technology, but also about vision and action. Our customers really see a value in the product, as well as the ability to act on it, right? So if you have a vision and you can act on that vision, that's really what the system can do for you as well. And then the other thing is that companies are wanting to embrace innovation. They're wanting to get to a point where they have net zero sustainability, right? Or as close as possible as they can get to. And so with that, I want to close with this last slide here, which is basically the Adaptive Green product, where renewables are actually made easy. If you want to see the official training of this particular product, I invite you to join us on Thursday. That's going to be in the morning. Can't remember exactly what time, but you'll be able to see in real time how you can put in trades around renewable assets, RECs, PPAs, and then how to settle those as well. Thank you.